Welcome to Chapter 6 of our Rue Ibrahim Byers Human Resource Management textbook. I am going to be lecturing on the process of recruiting employees. Make sure you take a lot of notes because you'll see from exams as well as assignments where this information will be intertwined and referenced. So let's go ahead and jump into Chapter 6. Some of the things that you should be able to grasp and learn by the end of reading this chapter is your ability to define recruitment and what it is, what it's not, discuss job analysis, human resource planning and recruitment, explain what the purpose of personnel requisition form is in an organization, and the advantages and disadvantages of using internal methods of recruitment. You should also be able to discuss job postings and bidding and the processes that go into both, the advantages and disadvantages of using external methods of recruitment, right? So you're going to look at both internal and external, defining realistic job previews, explaining organizational inducements, and outlining some of the specific EEOC recommendations for advertising jobs. So when we think of recruitment, of course, this is applicable to any industry, any kind of business organization. Recruitment is the process of looking for, attracting, and ultimately hiring or contracting or bringing aboard a pool of people that you find qualified to perform a certain duty. And so you'll have a vacancy that needs to be filled, and you're looking for the most qualified individuals. And so there's various methods that we use to recruit candidates. And they are determined from the HR planning process and specific requirements that are outlined and that you should follow based on those jobs that need to be filled. So there are some options that you can look for. You can look at temporary workers that come in to the job for a short period of time. You can offer overtime to existing employees. You can subcontract work to another organization. My consulting firm, Foreman and Associates, sometimes other organizations will subcontract work to us. Another option is to lease employees, so you're leasing them from other companies. And then there's outsourcing work, so you can actually, certain tasks or certain roles or functions within your company that you don't have the resources to fulfill, you can outsource it out to another company. Figure 6.1 in your textbook shows you the relationships among job analysis, HR planning, recruitment, and selection. And I will zoom in for you so that you can see it closer. You see on the left we have our job analysis, and that is looking at the nature and requirements of specific jobs and how that then is tied into the job description, which is then used in order to recruit. And then on the other side, you have your HR planning, and that's looking at a number of specific jobs that need to be filled. And then how that's tied into recruiting is that if you see on the job analysis side, we have that pool of qualified candidates, and we're looking at the sources and what makes them qualified, and how are they being qualified? Are there recruiters involved? Are there specific inducements? All of that gets funneled into the recruitment process, and then ultimately a candidate or multiple candidates are then selected. So the personnel requisition form describes why you need to hire a new person and what is required of that person upon accepting the job. So it outlines all of not just the job description, it's going to outline the specifics of the day-to-day and any expectations that will be placed upon them during the term of their employment. So some of the sources that we can look at for qualified personnel, our internal sources are those that are already employed with the organization. There's advantages and disadvantages to hiring within, or from within, I should say. Advantages are that you already kind of have an understanding of individual employees' weaknesses and their strengths. You have their performance evaluations available to review if your organization stays on top of performance evaluations. If not, then that's a disadvantage. The third thing is that more accurate data is available concerning your current employees. You already know how well they perform, and they already know more about the organization and how it operates. They understand about the culture and the environment, so you don't have to go through the process of training and acclimating them to your system. Then there's, it can help with employee motivation and morale because it allows employees to see that there is promotion opportunities available. And it can help prevent layoffs, or it can give the perception that layoffs are not in the imminent future. And another advantage is that most organizations have a sizable investment in the current workforce. Some disadvantages is that it can actually increase your infighting. It can increase internal fighting for promotions, and it can have a negative impact on morale. It can drop significantly your performance numbers because those employees that were not promoted can feel, as the saying goes, they can be all in their feelings, right? They can feel disrespected, overlooked, devalued, and so morale can sink, performance numbers can sink. And another disadvantage is the inbreeding of ideas, meaning you're not innovative, there's nothing new coming out and being offered, or it winds up being, it's almost like if you always hang around the same people who are just like you and think the same way you do, there's no new thoughts. Nothing creative comes out of that. And you can have a stalemate. You can plateau in a lot of ways. So some issues that you can consider is this. When you're promoting from within, you have to have a strong employee, and you have to have a strong management development program to ensure that everyone can handle the larger responsibilities that are being presented to them. One thing that I've noticed about many organizations is they may have strong employees, but they may have a lousy management development program. And that can be detrimental because you're then, in a sense, handcuffing your employees. You're limiting their growth and their potential. Another issue to consider is the desirability of using seniority as the basis for promotions. Some people scoff at the idea that only you promote those who have been in the position or been with the company, longer. But what if someone else that's been with the company less than them is actually more qualified, who's actually been putting in the work, who actually gets it, can take things to the next level? So you have to look at all of those factors that play in. So when we have job posting and bidding, the job post informs employees of the different vacancies within your organization in specific locations and departments, and it gives them a specific time that they have to apply. It's a deadline. And so the bidding begins where you're, as a bidder, you're bidding for that job. You're required to list your qualifications and why you believe that you should be transferred or promoted to this new position. Anyone who's unsuccessful in bidding are notified by HR and advised why they weren't accepted. That is in an ideal setting. I have seen too many times where they're notified by their manager, not HR, and they're really not explained. It's not clear as to why they weren't accepted. So it's important, as I said earlier, you have to have a strong management training component. You have to have a strong HR department, and you have to have a strong internal system that encourages and supports all of this. Now, you can find external sources through different ways. One way is advertising, and you can place a ad in a paper, trade, or professional publication on radio, television, social media, and that is one way. You can go through an employment agency, and they have headhunters, and oftentimes they are private employment agencies that go after your high-level executive and mid-level positions in order to help find you the most qualified candidates. There's also temp agencies that subcontract the work out to individuals who are independent contractors. Sometimes they will be defined as employees based on how much control and how much that person has to align to the standards and the day-to-day functions of your organization. And the temp agencies contract out for an hourly rate for a specific period of time. Employee leasing companies, they provide permanent staff members to come and work at their client's organization. They literally lease out a permanent staff person versus a temp agency. Most temp agencies, the contract is usually temporarily, few days, few weeks, few months. There could be a temp to permanent hire, and that's usually a designation where a candidate understands that they have the potential of possibly being hired on permanently. But you do know going in, this is a temporary gig of sorts. So there is a difference between the two types of companies. Now, let's look at some other things. We have employee referrals and walk-ins, right? You have employees within your organization who have some suggestions as to who they think will be a great hire. It could be their friend, a colleague, someone that they met at a conference, so on and so forth. And this is really helpful if your organization involves employees in that process. And it has an impact on the number of quality people who apply, especially if you know that your employees are high caliber, committed, dedicated, productive workers. They will most likely refer candidates who are much like them. There's another recruiting, campus recruiting, and you align with and have a relationship with various colleges and universities, and through them that they're like a feeder system in a sense, where you're able to do a lot of recruitment activities on campus or through their website, through your website as well. And then internet recruiting, most of you have experienced it on both sides of the recruiting process. And that's basically searching for qualified applicants online using various sources, LinkedIn, Monster, so on and so forth. I used to be a corporate recruiter in 2006, and we had a lot of candidates who would apply for our position. And although I did not recruit online, I used the internet to help qualify or disqualify them for positions. So it's very interesting. So let's look at some advantages of internet recruitment. The advantages are there can be significantly lower cost involved. You can find an employee faster. You can change an ad anytime you'd like. Applications can be made electronically, which saves data entry time and reduces errors. And it provides you with a bigger audience to recruit from. And it's also becoming a standard for most people's job hunting. Some disadvantages are that you can't reach someone who's not already on the web. You can have way too many irrelevant or bad candidates. It does not work with all jobs because some difficult to fill jobs can only be filled by recruitment consultants themselves. And many of your online resumes are overstating the qualifications, so you end up wasting time bringing in a disqualified candidate when you could be interviewing a good one. Some advantages and disadvantages of using external sources. Your advantages are that you have a greater pool to choose from. There's more innovative and insightful thought processes coming in, different perspectives. It costs less. Disadvantages, the process of the entire recruitment process is more difficult. It takes longer for new hires to adjust or to go through the orientation process. And it can actually cause some morale problems for your already established employees, as I mentioned earlier. Table 6.2 shows both internal and external recruiting advantages and disadvantages set up this way, so you can kind of see it this way, which is basically repeating what I just said. Now, an RJP is a realistic job preview, and this is a method that is used to provide you with complete job information. It shows both the positives and negatives to that job, so you understand up front what you're getting yourself into. It helps you self-select jobs that meet or don't meet your expectations, and if you're offered a job and you accept it, it can help you be more committed to the job itself because you have a realistic expectation of what is happening in the day in and day out to the job. You get to see the good, the bad, the ugly, and the pretty of the job. I wish more companies would do this because a lot of employees come into a job based on what is said in an interview and a job description. They are never given a RJP, and they feel blindsided, bamboozled, because it's not what it was promoted and led them to believe. Figure 6.2, I'm going to enlarge this also, so you can see some of the typical consequences of the job preview procedures. Let's expand this. In the traditional procedures versus your realistic procedures, you'll see that traditional side, there's set initial job expectations that are too high. The job is typically viewed as attractive. There's a high rate of job offer acceptance. Work experience disconfirms expectations. Dissatisfaction and realization that job did not match the needs, and there's a lower job survival. Dissatisfaction, frequent thoughts of quitting. When you have a realistic outline, the expectations are realistic. It's clear. It may or may not be attractive to that person. It really depends on their needs. And some accept while others reject the job offer. The work experiences confirm one's expectations, and there's satisfaction because the needs are being matched to the job. And there's usually a higher job survival, higher satisfaction, and infrequent thoughts of quitting that job. Now, when we look at our recruitment procedure, this is applying mostly to our large and middle-sized organizations, not your micro and small organizations. So those that are much larger have an employment office within your HR department where they have recruiters and interviewers and clerical personnel. And that is something that when I mentioned that I was a corporate recruiter, that is how we had our own office within, and that's all we did. The only people that were in that particular room were recruiters, and so it's interesting dynamic to experience because much smaller organizations, usually the same people that are recruiting are usually interviewing and doing the clerical personnel information. Now, this role is crucial because you have people who are walking in from, off the street. You have people that are, just writing in, and the write-ins are, they saw something online and they're inquiring, and then you have these respondents who are responding to ads, and it develops an impression about the organization as a whole, but also it develops for your candidates. You get to get a feel for them. You help to weed out the bad seeds from the good seeds before they get into the interview process, or especially before they get hired. Some people skip so many valuable steps, and they hire and begin training people that just were never really qualified, not just on paper, but just how do I put it? Their energy or their personality does not vibe well with the internal culture of that organization. Another crucial element is that it has employees trained in effective communication and interpersonal skills is essential to this office and the role of the personnel within it. The office manager, that person is responsible for handling the recruitment and any other responsibilities within a small organization. Your line managers will recruit and do the job interview for small organizations. So you see how it distinguishes itself based on the size and scope of an organization. So let's look at our inducements. These are our perks, the bonus features and benefits that you can offer to attract job applicants. And it can be compensation, different career opportunities, the reputation of your organization. It can be little things like, we have ping pong tables and um, sleep pods and nap rooms and um, vending machines that have all kinds of goodies in it. And we have a world-renowned chef who helps run our on-campus cafeteria where you can have cuisine from all around the world. So there's different inducements. It could also be we offer paid educational reimbursement, so on and so forth. Let's look at equal employment opportunity and how that's tied into recruitment. You have the different job categories, and there's procedures that are drawn up to help in the recruiting process for each category. And those procedures are analyzed and reviewed to identify any discriminatory barriers and to quickly eliminate them. We have employee referrals and we have walk-ins. And those people help to perpetuate the current day composition of your workforce. So if you don't have that many females and minorities in your organization and they're not well represented at all levels of the organization, not just frontline, but mid-level and senior level, it is very difficult to use those demographics in your recruiting process, and it can, how do I put this? It can also lead to discriminatory practices. So, how do I say this? If the vast majority of your workforce within your organization on all levels, or better yet, on senior and mid-level of your organization are white or white and Asian, and on your front line, and white and Asian male, and on your front line there may be white, Asian, and Middle Eastern males, but you don't see that many, and then females, but you don't see any females on your senior level. People will begin to believe that you're discriminated against women, against females in general, in positions of greatest power, which is the top, your senior level. So all of these things play into not only how your company is viewed externally, but also internally. So here are some suggestions. Making sure that your ads, when you're placing an ad for an open position, that it is not indicating any particular race, sex, age preference for that job. You're at that point, when you do that, when you define based on those, the only thing that you could say is when it comes to age, if you happen to be working in a business or an industry that is not appropriate for minors, right? You could say you have to be 21 and over. If there's something dealing with any kind of drugs, alcohol, liquor, things of that nature, it's kind of, you need to go ahead and preface that. If it's in the adult sex industry, for instance, that should be a given. So you can preface it from that. That's how you can avoid a potentially even larger issue. But in general, do not post an ad that is indicating that you're looking for any particular race, sex, or age. Now, you are, as an organization, encouraged to advertise in media that is directly marketing to minorities and women. That is how you are able to have greater outreach and be able to recruit more candidates in both of those categories. And you should also schedule recruiting visits that have colleges with both minority and female enrollment. You should develop and maintain contacts with individuals and organizations that have a good representation of minority and female candidates. And make sure that you contact non-traditional recruitment sources, such as organizations that place physically and mentally handicapped persons, so that you have access to those candidates as well. So as you go further into Chapter 6 and you get to explore, a lot of this information will be explained in greater detail. Hopefully, I was able to hone in on certain elements that you may not have gotten the gist of in the reading, or some of you may actually watch my lectures first before you start to read. So either way, hopefully this will help shed some light. So I hope this has been helpful, and I will see you for our Chapter 7 lecture soon. Take care.